Order, please. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Natural Resources and Economic Development, and today's subject is the review of Nova Scotia Power. My name's Tom Taggart. I'm the MLA for Colchester North and chair of this committee. Today we will hear from witnesses regarding the review of Nova Scotia Power. So before we begin, I ask that everybody turn off their phones and put them on silent. And in the case of an emergency, please use the Granville Street exit and walk up to Grand Parade. I will now ask the committee members to introduce themselves for the record by stating their name and constituency, starting on my left here.
Good afternoon. I'm Kyle McQuarrie, MLA for Inverness and Vice Chair of the committee.
Good afternoon. Danny McGilvery, MLA for Pictou Centre.
Good afternoon. David Bowlby, MLA for Annapolis.
Good afternoon. Julie Van Exen, MLA for King South.
Ian Rankin, Kimberley Prospect.
Claudia Chender, Dartmouth South.
Hello, Susan LeBlanc, MLA for Dartmouth North.
And I would also like to note the presence of Legislative Counsel Genevieve Harvey and Legislative Committee Clerk Tamer Maseba. Sorry, apologize. So I'd ask if the witnesses would introduce themselves, and then once you've each introduced yourselves, any opening remarks. I start with Mr. Gregg.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. My name is Peter Gregg. I'm the President and CEO of Nova Scotia Power.
Good afternoon. I echo Peter's comments. Thanks for having us. I'm Chris Lanteigne, Director of Customer Care at Nova Scotia Power.
And Mr. Gregg, I believe you have opening statements or comments?
I do. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So again, thank you for inviting us to today's committee meeting. I'm joined today by Chris Lanteigne, our Director of Customer Care. At Nova Scotia Power, our commitment to providing reliable power to Nova Scotians has been unwavering for over 100 years. We recognize that the cyber event has affected the trust we have built with our customers, and I want to acknowledge and apologize for the concern and disruption this has caused. Over the past 215 days, our team has worked around the clock to restore and strengthen our systems and to support our customers. And we recognize that the cyber incident continues to impact our customers, including concerns about estimated bills. To you, the committee, and to all Nova Scotians, my promise to you is that if we have overestimated your bill, we will fix it. If you have overpaid, we will fix it. And if we make a mistake, we will fix it. This incident was an unprecedented, sophisticated, and targeted attack. Based on expert assessments and intelligence, there's a high degree of confidence that the activity was closely associated with a Russia-based threat actor group. And while we have made significant investments in cybersecurity, these types of threats are becoming increasingly complex and challenging for organizations worldwide. Thanks to our robust systems, our ongoing investments, and the dedication of our employees, we ensured that core operations in the electric grid continued uninterrupted. No power was lost to Nova Scotians. Now, there is still much work ahead, and as our investigation into the incident is almost complete, we continue to learn important lessons from this event. Since the attack, we've implemented a comprehensive recovery plan and made progress in several areas, such as continuously evolving IT security processes and protection systems, upgrading our online customer account portal, launching a new secure cloud-based customer communication system, and upgrading our financial systems to return to paying our suppliers in an appropriate timeframe. Most importantly, we remain focused on the impact this has had to Nova Scotians. We understand the ongoing challenges related to billing, payments to our suppliers, and the longer wait times to speak to our care team, and we are working diligently to resolve them. Restoring all systems will take time, but we are providing flexible options for our customers, such as equal billing, pay-what-you-can arrangements, and photo meter reads, until we're able to reconnect our systems and provide up-to-date bills. We no longer collect social insurance numbers and are on track to complete their removal from our system by March 31st. We are on track to reconnect customer meters with our billing system by the end of March. Our team has worked to address outstanding payments to suppliers, and we expect to be caught up on these payments before the end of the year. I do want to recognize the remarkable efforts of Nova Scotia Power employees, who are also our customers. Their resilience and innovation have been critical in supporting our customers during this challenging time. While responding to this incident has required significant resources, our core mission remains to provide reliable and affordable power. Over the past year, we have invested more than $200 million in reliability, including replacing 3,000 power poles across the province and clearing trees from 1,500 kilometers of power lines. We continue to make essential investments to meet our customers' energy needs and strengthen future resilience. In September, we submitted a general rate application to our regulator, and we know there is never a good time to request an increase to power rates. But at the same time, the reliability investments we've applied for cannot wait. This rate application was developed in collaboration with customer advocates who've agreed that the request strikes the right balance between affordability and reliability. We appreciate the vital role of Nova Scotia's independent regulator and welcome the transparent and public process with the Energy Board in January. We continue to fully cooperate with ongoing cyber investigations by both the Nova Scotia Energy Board and the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada. In closing, I want to reiterate our commitment to supporting Nova Scotians, minimizing the impact of this incident, and most importantly, rebuilding trust. We do not take this responsibility lightly. Again, my promise to you is if we have overestimated your bill, we will fix it. If you have overpaid, we will fix that. If we make a mistake, we will fix it. We thank our customers for their patience and understanding as we work through this difficult and evolving situation. Thank you for the opportunity to have this important discussion today.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. So we're going to move now to the question and answer portion of our meeting. I remind everyone that please wait for me to recognize you, and then the red light gets turned on so Les TV can record it, and we'll carry on from there. So we're going to start the first round of questions with the NDP Caucus. for 20 minutes, followed by the Liberals for 10 minutes, and the PC for 30 minutes. So I recognize MLA Chender, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Gregg and Mr. Lanteigne, for being here. This is true. I got an email this morning, which was similar to many emails that we've been receiving, and I want to quote it. And the customer talks about how he's fed up with Nova Scotia Power. He's received double billing from his estimate of last year. He got a letter at the same time around being exposed in the recent privacy breach. And he says, I have to be worried about my identity and credit for the rest of my life due to no fault of my own, but Nova Scotia Power gets to send me a bill for twice what I owe. Pissed off does not begin to cover my current outlook. So I think it's a good note to start this meeting on, because I think this is what we're all hearing and why we're here. We got another note from Mike Kennedy, Broad Cove. Power bill last year was $500. This year it's $1,000. So I want to start by sort of asking about this double estimating that seems to be happening. We know that people are stressed. We know that people are already upset about the breach. We understand that you're working to bring the systems back up, but we keep hearing about double billing based on last year's estimate. Can you speak to that, please?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Lanteigne, as he'll provide some more detail. Just to say, recognize there is frustration among our customers, and as I said in my statement, apologize for that. It was a significant event that affected our back office systems, and we are working around the clock to rebuild those. And we're having to rely on estimated bills in many situations. We did a first round of estimated bills. We then hired meter readers, and we have been sending the meter readers around the province to get accurate reads everywhere we can. Over 75% of our meters have actually had an accurate read, but there are some meters we still have not been able to get to yet, and that's where the estimating comes in. The system was never designed to estimate that number of bills. It was meant to be for more one-off situations, and so we've been tuning the system as much as we can. We haven't always got it right, and that's why you're seeing some of these overestimations. And maybe with that intro, Chris, could you add some more detail to that?
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. Just to elaborate a bit on what Mr. Gregg has said, so when this incident was first detected on April the 25th, one of the things that we lost the ability to do was actually to send bills out to customers. And it was shortly into June where we actually restored that ability. What we began doing for that first round of bills is we did have to catch up because we knew that no bills had been issued for that 6-week period. And we began by estimating bills. At the same time, two other very important things were happening. So we had begun to onboard meter readers to actually get out and read meters. That started in July. And also at the same time, the work to begin the restoration of systems began. I do want to clarify that the meters that are on customers' homes are accurately recording energy. We have tested that. We are sure of that. Our ability to talk to those meters is what has been lost and what we're working to restore. What we've done, and we actually, I believe, we had a conversation in June and we talked about it then, is we had already made the commitment and we confirmed it then that we're not charging late fees and we're not charging interest to customers. We know that the estimation, as we have moved into, like later on into the year, into colder months, we know that some of the estimations are high. We know that some of the estimations are also low. So I think what's really important for customers right now is that, again, recognize we're not charging late charges, we're not charging interest on those amounts, and we're doing everything we can to restore the systems. There's no penalty right now if a customer decides not to pay that bill. That said, in our conversations with low-income advocates, we still are working with customers to try to help them understand an amount to pay, because we know that if a payment isn't made for several months in a row, we do have concerns, and we share the concerns of low-income advocates about that balance.
I recognize MLA Chender.
Thank you. But I want to ask again specifically, we have heard several instances of double billing. And so, I think I, like lots of Nova Scotia Power customers, often when I see my bill, I look to see what did I use last year? Am I using more power? Am I using less? Is it more expensive? Is it less expensive? Why wouldn't the company just use the amount from last year? Like, I don't, if you're not confident in your ability to estimate accurately, I don't understand why the company wouldn't just take last year's use as a proxy. Can you speak to that?
Mr. Lanteigne?
Yeah, and that is a very fair question. From our perspective, I think to reiterate something that Peter mentioned, we have never had to estimate this volume of bills for this period of time. So the system is drawing on usage from the previous year. We cannot just make a change to pick the same bill amount from the previous year. I think over the course of the last 7 months, April 25th was 7 months ago to the day, we have been, making decisions and adjusting our approach based on customer feedback as we go forward. The reason why we're here today, the feedback that you've talked about, that's something that we have heard loud and clear from our customers over the last couple of weeks as well. So one of the things that we have been doing reactively since this began, if we have a conversation with a customer and they do want to send us a picture of their meter, we will accept that. And we've made that more prominent, putting that on our website last week. And the billing website that we've stood up for this incident is something that is featured on bill inserts going directly to customers. So that is a mechanism that's available to them as well.
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that too. I think it's an important update that, so recall that the cyber event essentially destroyed the communication system between the meters and our billing engine. And so we've been working to restore that securely, and we will be starting to restore that functionality in December, and we expect to have that fully restored by end of March. So we are close to getting that back up and built. We've taken the time to make sure that that is an effective and a secure system. So we will be getting back to the normal practice. And as Chris had said, the meters we know have kept accurate information. And so we will actually have usage. It's unfortunate, and I understand customers' frustrations and concern when they get a bill like that. We will work with our customers to make sure they have the arrangements they need to be able to pay the reasonable amount, and we're working as quickly as we can to get back to full functionality. I think that's the big fix.
I recognize MLA Chender.
Thanks. I think we still have some outstanding questions on that, but I'll shift gears for a second. And I want to ask, since the data breach and more recently, even since this committee has been called, have you had conversations with folks in the Department of Energy or other government departments about this issue, about providing relief for Nova Scotians? There's lots of conversations about affordability. Your rate application is coming. Have you been in conversations with the Department of Energy about this?
About specifically, sorry, the first part of your question, I'm not sure I caught. It was between.
Well, I guess it's a two-part about, this situation in particular, but further about the affordability challenges facing Nova Scotians and whether there's something that government can do to step in and also help that.
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yes, thank you. We have ongoing discussions with the Department of Energy on a myriad of issues. It's regular communications, and we have kept them informed, briefed on our restoration efforts and the challenges we are experiencing. So yes, we do have those conversations. I think, as it relates to affordability, it's always a concern of ours. I know it's a concern of the government's, and that's why. When I talked about the rate application that's currently before the regulator, there's never a good time for that, but we do need to make reliability investments. And that's why we took the approach this time, working with consumer advocates, all of the customer representatives, to try to strike that balance. And we believe we got it right between reliability and affordability. To make the necessary investments to reliability, but to do that in a way that keeps affordability in mind and keeps the bill trajectory down. And so, those conversations have obviously taken place with the government as we proceed through those discussions, and I expect they'll continue to happen.
I recognize MLA Chender.
Appreciate that. I'm wondering, as you know, Premier Houston recently appointed himself the Minister of Energy. I'm wondering if you or your colleagues have had any conversations with him in that capacity.
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Since that time, I've had one opportunity to have a discussion with Premier Houston, and that was last week.
I recognize MLA Chender.
So it's fair to say, given the ongoing conversations between Nova Scotia Power and the Department of Energy, given your recent meeting with Premier Houston, that no information that you're going to present to the committee today would come as news to the government. Is that fair to say?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
I think that's fair to say, yes, if I'm following it properly.
I recognize MLA Chender.
Thank you. In those conversations, has anyone from the Department of Energy or other government departments proposed specific programs that the government could either help fund or backstop that would help Nova Scotians to be able to afford their energy bills?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
As I said, there are ongoing conversations. What I can recall, and I think maybe a concrete example of something that addresses your question. If you think back to last year, we'd had the issue around increasing fuel costs as a portion of the bill. And that was a direct result of spiked energy prices after the Ukraine conflict had happened. So we had a big fuel bill to pay. No fault of Nova Scotians, it was worldwide events. And we were worried about the impact that would have on our customers. And so we approached the government at the time, the provincial government, and had months of discussions, then engaged the federal government, and that's where we were able to secure that $500 million federal loan guarantee, which basically takes that cost of the power, which would have been a one-time big amount on the bill, and spread that over a longer period of time. And so I think that's a good example of the types of discussions we do have with the government that results in meaningful benefit to customers through the collaborative actions.
I recognize MLA Chender.
I appreciate that. I mean, I'll take a moment to editorialize and say that I think previous government interventions had a destabilizing effect on credit ratings for the company, which may have in turn led to a greater need for a security from government. You can comment on whether or not you think that's true later, if you like. But I guess, to the average Nova Scotian who's choosing between groceries and power bills, that feels very abstract, right? Like that's not something that they know happened necessarily, but what they do know is that their power rates are going up and up and up, and relative to other Canadians, their power rates are extremely high. I know that Nova Scotia Power, the company, has been open to conversations about a low-income energy rate. This is something that's been talked about for a quarter of a century now. Yourselves and folks from the provincial government both sat on the Energy Poverty Task Force. Chris Benjamin of the Ecology Action Centre said at the time that their report came out, quote, they have done, and referring to the government here, to the Houston government, have done nothing to address the situation despite a program recommended by the Energy Poverty Task Force more than a year ago. And then they play politics and use Nova Scotia Power as their boogeyman. People are understandably angry with Nova Scotia Power, but we need to also expect solutions from our government. So with that framing, I want to ask, have there been conversations with government about implementing the recommendations of the Energy Poverty Task Force that both Nova Scotia Power and government were present and a part of? And if so, why has this yet to be implemented so that we can help Nova Scotians to actually just pay those bills?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yes, well, I'll start. I know Chris has been very involved in many of these discussions for years, so I think I'll pass it over to him pretty quickly. But just to say, we do understand customers' challenges, and it's an increasingly expensive time for our customers. We know that, and we have been supportive of a low-income rate. We continue to say we are, and maybe with that, I'll pass it over to Chris because I know he's been part of many of those conversations.
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Thanks, Mr. Gregg and Ms. Chender. I was Nova Scotia Power's representative on the Energy Poverty Task Force, and when the task force report came out, we were proud to be there. We were happy to be at the table. I think that the recommendations that were in the report were very thoughtful, written by Roger Colton, the consultant who was in to do it. At that time, our position was the same, that if further conversations would be initiated on that report, we would have them. We did have an opportunity in the summertime to have a meeting. I joined Brian Gifford, the outgoing chair of the Affordable Energy Coalition, as he did speak to it. But from our perspective, that really is our approach. We think that there's very thoughtful recommendations in there, but we also know that government has to balance a lot of priorities. So when those conversations are ready to restart, we're going to be happy to be at the table.
Thank you, MLA Chender. Before you go ahead, I just asked that you table the correspondence you just referred to from the, it was called the Action Center. Yeah, thank you. MLA Chender.
Thank you. So just yes or no, because I have one more question. Is it fair to say that government would have to be a prime mover on that initiative? So for that, for those recommendations to go ahead, that would have to be adopted as a priority by the government. Is that fair to say?
Mr. Gregg.
Yeah, I think I've got this right. I think for there to be a new rate class established by the regulator, there would need to be regulation change.
MLA Chender.
Thank you. So focusing still on affordability, because the reason that people are so upset about this is affordability, of course. The Your Energy Rebate Program, which removes sales tax from home heating, it's a 9% rebate for Nova Scotians, is something that, again, probably a lot of Nova Scotians don't notice, but definitely benefit from. We have been calling to increase this rebate, at least even for now, while energy prices are so high. And we tabled legislation in this regard. In the course of researching that, we became aware that the provision in the Sales Tax Act that guaranteed that that rebate would remain, and that said that in fact, that rebate was required by law and couldn't be removed without a referendum, was quietly repealed by the PC government in 2023. Were you aware of that?
Mr. Gregg?
No.
Sorry.
So that rebate's still there, but now it feels as though it's in some jeopardy, and there's some history of this. So there was a previous PC government that put a sales tax rebate on and then took it back off again, which I think is why that legislation was introduced in that way. Has the company had any conversations? I think I asked this before, but I'll ask it just to get at this maybe a different way. We talked about the low income rate. Has the company had any other conversations with the Department of Energy, the Premier, the government about affordability challenges for Nova Scotians? So whether that's a government rebate on the bill, whether that's another program, are these conversations that you're having with government?
Mr. Gregg?
Yeah, I would say that pretty much every conversation we have with the government always has a lens of affordability on it, because we know it is a concern for Nova Scotians. And so, essentially every discussion we have around whatever the matter be, it's always part of the conversation. It's always a consideration. It certainly has been as we've thought our way through the rate application that's before the Energy Board now. And so, yeah, I don't think it should be a surprise to anyone that it is a common theme in our discussions.
I recognize MLA Chender.
Any specific ideas floating around?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
I would again. I think I would leave that to the government to if they want to talk about any specifics that they've got planned, they can address those.
Okay. I recognize MLA Chender with a minute 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, I just want to clarify that we did ask for the government to be here as well, because it's clear from this conversation that they do play a role in regulatory matters, in affordability matters. Someone on this committee voted against that, against having members of the Department of Energy here. Do you think it would have been helpful to also have government members here to talk about the role that they play?
Oh, yeah, but like the holes, yeah.
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
It's difficult for me to answer that question, honestly. I think, I don't really want to get involved in the affairs of the committee. I'm happy to be here as a witness and talk about Nova Scotia Power.
Thank you.
Order. I now recognize MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to ask about how you are estimating these bills. I think that's the biggest concern that people have, among other concerns, when people are getting bills that are 2 times, 3 times, and even more than they've had previously in similar times of the year. And so I note that you mentioned that some are overestimated, some are underestimated. So I think it's important when we're trying to look at the methodology that you're using, if you will, in terms of how you're estimating. So maybe you could tell me how you are actually coming to this estimate, because presumably if you're estimating well, you would have roughly equal that are over, equal that are under. So I wonder if you could share for Nova Scotians. We're obviously hearing from people that are being overcharged, so maybe you can describe that for me.
Mr. Lanteigne, please.
Thank you, Emily Rankin. So essentially for the estimated billing process, the way that it is reviewed is it's looking at usage from a similar time frame from the previous year. I do want to clarify a couple things. I know I touched on earlier the fact that we've never had to estimate this volume of bills for this period of time. You are right, it is an estimate. So some bills could be higher, some bills could be lower. When we are looking at things, it's not necessarily like it really is a shift from warmer periods into colder periods. And I know I addressed it earlier on the question from Emily Chender that unfortunately we cannot just go back and look at the previous year, and it does result in some customer situations where the estimate does seem like it's off. So we're looking at similar usage from cold periods of time last year, and it's generating the estimated bill for the customer. To truly determine if the estimate was right or wrong, that will happen when we get the meter read that actually corrects the bill and trues up the bill, if you will, to the actual usage that was used in a customer's home, for example. So from our perspective, looking back over the past few weeks, we can see that bill amounts have gone up as we've entered November and colder periods of time. And we are aware that customers are experiencing concerns with that. So I think, again, some of the things that, not to reiterate too much what we talked about earlier, is really important for customers to remember. There are no late charges. There's no interest being charged. And to your example that you gave, if a customer has strong confidence they have not changed anything in their home, that is a method that they could follow, is they could pay the same amount as the same bill from the previous year. Again, we're working really hard to have our systems restored, as Mr. Gregg talked about. We hope to see the first signs of our meters being able to communicate remotely in December, and we hope to have that fully restored by the end of Q1.
Recognize Emily Rankin.
That still doesn't answer the question of like how many, even as a percentage, a rough percentage, are actually being undercharged as opposed to being overcharged. Do you have that comparison? Because obviously your estimates are not very accurate estimates if the vast majority of them are actually being overcharged. And so it's fine to say that you can pay what you want or pay what you can, but these are people that live their whole lives never missing a due date on their bills. You know, fixed income seniors that have potentially struggled at one point in time in their life, living in Lakeside, that just want to pay their bill on time. They want an accurate billing, and it's cold comfort to say just pick an amount and pay it. You know, they have pride that they pay their bills. And I just wonder, why is it so difficult to look at the last year and charge them what they used last year and just adjust for inflation or whatever you want to adjust for? But I have examples here of last October a bill being $393, and then this year $1,300. December their bill was $392 in 2024. This December it's $1,124. You know, 3 times or more than it was last year. I asked this question to the government, and the Minister of Energy at the time last year said bills were high last year in part because we had a very cold year, a very cold season. This year we had one of the warmest Octobers in a long time. So we actually have a warmer season this year than we had last year, and people are getting double and triple their bills. So again, how many customers are actually getting undercharged as opposed to overcharged? You must have that data somewhere.
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah, and thank you for the examples. I think the one thing I will share is that when we are concluded here, if we can follow up with those customers directly, we'd be happy to help do that. What we have experienced really in the last several weeks is that as we have headed into the colder periods of time, we've seen the estimates increase. So we're probably right now seeing about half of the customers that are experiencing similar bills to the previous period, and about half customers that are seeing an increase in the bill. And to your point, that could mean that they're experiencing an increase from the previous year as well. I think one of the pieces that we have been doing, and I think to reiterate again, is we recognize that in some of these cases that it is wrong, and we acknowledge that mistake. And to Mr. Gregg's point earlier, we are committed to correcting that for customers. So while the meter read will adjust that, if a customer does have concerns, we do want to help them through that. And we have, as mentioned, introduced a process for customers who would have that concern to be able to submit a photo of their meter to be able to actually get the meter reading added to the bill.
I recognize MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate there's options for people, but not everybody, and seniors, again, don't carry smartphones to go outside and do Nova Scotia Power's job for them and get an accurate reading on the meter. So I just think that there should be some admittance that your estimate system, your methodology, is truly flawed and benefits Nova Scotia Power's cash flow at the expense of the cash flow of people that are struggling every day. And a commitment to do better. You know, if there is a way that we can just send them the last year's bill, adjusting for the increase in rates, we're talking about the consumption part of the bill that is very much in control of the customer. And so we're getting to a point now where people are challenging the consumption part, which is problematic, to say the least. And so I think what Nova Scotians are asking for is a commitment for change. But also, because I have limited time, what happens with all that extra revenue? So if I'm right that there's a lot of people being overcharged, and some of them are on auto pay, paying Nova Scotia Power a lot more, there's money sitting in your coffers, what happens with all that extra revenue, and is it accumulating interest?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge, as you say, you know, that where mistakes are made, we're going to fix it. And we are aware, as the examples you've given, there's some overestimated bills. And we know that's not acceptable, and we will fix that. I think the best fix is to make sure we get this system, the communication system, back to our meters, restored as quickly as possible. And that starts again in the coming weeks. And then, you know, we're always looking at the estimating tool and fine-tuning it. And obviously, some unfortunate situations that we apologize for. And Chris has mentioned what we're trying to do to help customers with that. And we will tune the system to the best of our ability to make sure that does not happen again in the future. But again, the best thing we can do is to get back to the accurate meter data. And I want to point out too that, you know, while it is meaningful for those customers, approximately 75% of our customer meters have been physically read. Where we can get access to those meters, they have. So it's 25% of the population that is being estimated, and that's where the issue is arising.
I recognize Mr. Rankin. MLA Rankin.
Yeah, so we're still talking about a significant amount, 100,000 or more Nova Scotians that are having an impact. So in terms of when you look at the revenue that you're bringing in, will you provide the committee with the full cost accounting look at what extra revenue, extra dollars came into Nova Scotia Power when all is said and done, and what you're doing with that revenue?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yes, we can commit to that. The broad commitment is to all of our customers, back to we'll get it right, we'll fix it. We will true up all these bills. And so once we're able to get the true meter reads and the communication system back up and running, we can do that. And then we will true up those bills. And so I don't want anyone to think that we're just taking that money. If people have overpaid, we owe people back that money, and we will give them back that money.
Recognize MLA Rankin, minute 24.
So would that include giving a refund and not waiting for the next billing cycle, which is every 2 months, just in the same way insurance companies do? If you remove a car off a policy, you get your refund option right away. Will customers get back the refund that they've overpaid?
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to just add from the previous question as well too is that we are, of course, if customers have concerns on the estimated amount, you mentioned as well, it is our job to read those meters and we acknowledge that. So we are prioritizing trying to get out to those homes and read them. And as Mr. Gregg mentioned, 75% of customers have had a read. If a customer is in a situation where it is shown that they have overpaid, there is a process where they could request a refund from us, yes.
I recognize MLA Rankin.
Thanks. I don't have enough time to get a full question, and I'll go to the next one. That's fine.
Thank you. I recognize MLA Macquarie.
Thank you. I'm concerned that the questions and answers and the topics we're discussing right now show a lack of being in touch with Nova Scotians, and that there is a danger of losing touch with Nova Scotians. So what I would like to ask is a simple question about a person who gets their power bill, because when they get their power bill, they're not sure that it's accurate. And the question was asked about the accuracy of the meters, and I would challenge that some of them, not all of them, can be accurate. There was going to be discrepancies. And even before the cyber attack, there was people questioning the accuracy of the smart meters. When a person gets a bill, they don't know if it's and they're looking at the price they're being charged. They don't know if it's an inaccurate meter or a poor estimate, if it's their usage, or if they have to catch up on their bill. Even that can be unclear to some people. So my question is, how are you going to ensure that a Nova Scotian reading their bill knows that there's a problem with their bill and how they can act?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yeah, I'll go back and thank you for the question. We share your concern, and we understand customers are concerned. We apologize that some of the trust in our practices has been lost, and we need to rebuild that trust. I fully acknowledge that. And I think, as Mr. Lanteigne said, if you've got concerns, please reach out to us. We're working with customers to give them the best information possible and work with them on tools to help them manage their bills. On the issue of smart meters, there is a robust federal testing regime through Measurement Canada to ensure that those smart meters are accurate. And we're not alone in the use of smart meters either. About 70% of Canadians are actually on a smart meter. So many other jurisdictions have them. So we are confident in their accuracy. They are measured regularly by outside independent party through Measurement Canada. And we've got a lot of data over the last number of years of using smart meters to indicate that they are accurate. And so we'll continue to ensure that independent testing to make sure they are accurate. But again, I do acknowledge Nova Scotians' concerns around the cyber event and some of the billing issues we've had as we look to rebuild our systems from what was a very complex cyber event, and know that we have work to do to rebuild that trust with Nova Scotians. And I am committed, as are all my colleagues at the company, to doing just that.
I recognize MLA Macquarie.
Nova Scotia Power has a program to test meters for users. There's a number they can call so that they can test an individual meter. I'm disappointed that that didn't come forward in your answer. And again, like, when a person gets a bill, how do they know what to do? Like, what's on the bill? What directions are they getting? So that was my question. What is on the bill? What directions are they getting so that they can take some matters into their own hands and act on their behalf?
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah, great question. So if a customer does receive a bill, it will indicate one of two things at the top of the bill. It will say that your bill has been estimated for this period of time, or it will indicate the date that the meter was actually read. So we are able to the customer is able to see, is this an estimated bill or was the meter read? The other thing that we've been including in bills is inserts or for electronic bill distribution, something that's on the e-bill notification that actually points customers to nspower.ca/billing, which is a website that we have stood up to help answer questions and provide options for customers just to help explain the whole situation a little bit more.
I recognize Emily McQuarrie.
I just have one more question. I'm going to pass it on to my colleague. But so many people in Nova Scotia get a paper bill, and they take that paper bill into their bank, and they pay the bill at their bank. Giving them a website doesn't help. And I think that there has to be a better way in the mailing to notify them of the opportunities that you are suggesting that they have, because those opportunities are ineffective if people don't know about them. So that there has to be a better way to notify people.
Mr. Lanteigne.
I appreciate that sentiment, and I share your concern as well. I think from my perspective, the billing insert, and I'll concede the point that I probably pointed too quickly to the website, the billing insert does have information on it as well. And of course, reaching out to us to talk to us is a method that would be available for someone who's not comfortable with being online.
I recognize MLA McGilvery.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll stick with the general billing inaccuracy theme, but I'd like to focus on the solar for just 1 minute. So solar customers are struggling in particular with the accurate billing. We've heard from multiple residents they were charged for their own solar power rather than receiving a credit back. So for example, if they should have received a $500 credit in their bill instead of the $500 increase in their bill. How does this happen, and what steps have been taken to resolve this issue?
Mr. Lanteigne.
Yes, the solar customer situation is something that we are well aware of. So just a couple of points on that I would share is that one of the pieces of note is that we do not actually have the ability to estimate the generation that a customer has from the solar panels that are on their home. That's customer-owned equipment, so we don't have all the details to be able to generate the generation estimate. While we can estimate the usage of energy consumed in the home, we do recognize that that's been a problem. So we have been prioritizing reading net metering solar customers so that we can true up their bills. And I know we've been focused, I've talked about it already, about how we have meter readers out in the field trying to increase the rate of all customers, but recognizing that unique challenge for solar customers. That is something that we have prioritized, making sure that we can get those readings and true up the bills to reflect the generation on their homes.
I recognize MLA McGilvery.
Thank you very much for that. The residents did invest in the solar panels, so see the return is an important thing, so thanks. Just on the, some customers have reported overly high bills and been able to send in photos, as mentioned a little bit earlier. It seems like a common sense solution for people who are able to do that with smartphones. I'm just wondering why that wasn't shared earlier as an option and more widely.
Mr. Lanteigne.
That is a great question, and when we actually got started recognizing the situation for our building, if I go back into May, even when we were paused, we did think of a range of options, and that was something that we considered. I do want to reiterate that our main focus was to actually hire meter readers and get the 100 meter readers out in the field reading meters. To send in a photo, while it is something that we have been doing, we've been doing it since the start, actually reactively. If someone's talking to our customer care team, that can be an option that our customer service associates follow. It has not been as public of an option because, to be honest with you, our capacity to process those is limited. So again, our focus was on getting meter readers out in the field to customers' homes. And while we've made really good progress with that, we recognize that we haven't gotten to everybody yet. And hearing the concerns from our customers, we talked earlier about how our strategy's been evolved to make sure that we're addressing concerns of our customers. So that's why we've been a bit more proactive about that in the past week or two.
I recognize MLA McGilvery.
I'll pass it on to my colleague.
MLA Bowlby, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen. You mentioned earlier in questioning that Nova Scotia Power is not charging interest on bills, and that you're working with ratepayers to help them get through this. This morning I had a call from a gentleman who's pretty sharp, and he holds me to account almost weekly. And on the drive-in, he read me his bill, and it was clearly outlined that he was being charged interest. So you mentioned that your company is not, but yet this constituent said that he is. So just wondering if you could speak to that.
Sorry. Mr. Lanteigne.
Thank you. And thank you for the question. I appreciate it. And one of the pieces that is an important distinction is that I can assure you we're not charging interest. We're not charging payment, late fees for customers. The stock of the bill still indicates the standard charge. But we've been very clear in our messages, whether it's from our customer care team, from our from our materials that are online and bill inserts that are going to customers who receive paper bills, that we are not charging those items. The standard kind of terms is still listed on the bill, but there would be no charges of late fees or interest.
I recognize MLA Bowlby.
Thank you. So to get back to this constituent, I would tell them to ignore that interest charge and to just focus on the regular charges that are on the bill. And he also mentioned that he's been charged, I forget the number of kilowatts extra, but from comparison a year ago, summertime to summertime, his bill was like 4 or 5 times higher. So, and he mentioned that he's reached out, tried to call and put on hold and had difficulties getting through. So I just want to be able to try to help my constituent, and I know the family, and there's not a lot of extra pennies, and they're quite concerned. And we're heading into winter, and he's quite concerned that his power might be disconnected. So,
Mr. Lanteigne.
We didn't talk about it. I just want to address the point of disconnections. So Nova Scotia Power has not disconnected any customer since this incident began. Similar to not charging late fees and interest, that's important. And to clarify, and I apologize if I wasn't clear earlier, the standard terms of a late charge, the listing says late charges can be charged, is on the bill, but there would not be a late charge on that customer's bill or interest being charged on that customer's bill. So from the perspective of your customer, you are correct that you can assure them that they're not being charged late charges. Again, I know I mentioned it earlier as well too. When we've concluded here, we're happy to help you with the follow-up of our customer, because we definitely want to make sure that their mind is at ease. That's important to us.
MLA Bowlby, please.
Well, thank you, Chair.
I got one more.
Oh, you have one more? I'm
Sorry.
I
Thank
thought
you.
there was a mixture of our
Sorry.
name there.
One individual that I've spoken with actually has a billing issue for their property, who lost their home. And you recall this summer in Annapolis County, where I'm the MLA, we had the Long Lake Fire. And there were 20 homes lost. The fire started roughly the middle of August and was deemed under control late October. They have received a bill from Nova Scotia Power after going through the horrendous, gut-wrenching loss of losing their home and everything. When they are allowed to go back, they go to the community mailbox, and there's a power bill from Nova Scotia Power outlining power usage during that time that their home has been disintegrated. So we can imagine how upset one would be in losing their home. But to go to the mailbox and to see that, I can't imagine the anxiety and stress that would constitute. And we had 20 people that lost their homes. We had hundreds that were evacuated. My wife and I were evacuated. And then this is a one-off thing. It is a major thing for a county and the province. It would have been very proactive for the company to have someone to come to the area and to maybe speak to these people that are evacuated, and to speak to the people that lost their homes, and to provide them some assurances. But that didn't happen. So I'm getting these repeated calls of distress. How does this even happen? How does that bill get sent to someone that has lost their home?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate situation, and to that Nova Scotian, that constituent, that customer of ours, apologize for that. And it's an unfortunate occurrence from sort of the confluence of the cyber event happening, and so not being able to have a connection to the actual meter that would have given us that information. I think, so I can understand the distress that that would cause me. I can assure those customers that they will not be paying for energy they obviously did not consume. And your point about, should we have been there talking to those customers, Chris, maybe there's something you can add to that.
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
I just want to start by saying I feel terrible for your constituent, and the billing piece obviously exacerbates that, but it's just horrible what has happened to people who are losing their homes because of the fires that we experienced this year and a couple of years ago as well. Just to add to a couple of pieces of this, our approach, we do have, of course, Nova Scotia Power employees across the province, and our regional operations teams in the area. They were in the area. They were obviously helping assess the damage. Our intention would have been that for a customer's home who was destroyed, we would have put a stop on the billing. So I'm not sure why that didn't happen here. And to Mr. Gregg's point, we apologize for that, and we do feel bad about that. We did have members of our regional operations team and our customer care team that had joined some events in the area. Again, it's unfortunate that weren't in the same events, and perhaps not enough, and that's something we always want to do better of. But yes, our intention is that if we ever hear of a situation where a customer has lost their home, we're trying to suspend the billing regardless of whether or not we're in this situation where we're still restoring from the cyber incident. So I just wanted to add that piece in again and offer my, my sympathy for the customer who lost their home. That is terrible.
I recognize MLA Van Exen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both for being here. And I can add a lot of my own constituents' voices to this. One in particular had their entire account wiped out because when automatic billing came back up, all of the bill payment came all at once, and they couldn't afford food. So that's one part of my constituents that I'd like to make sure their voices are raised here. But other constituents are also contractors. And in October, CBC reported that Nova Scotia Power hadn't paid several contractors in months. Can you please explain what kind of contractor suppliers were impacted by non-payment, and how our province's electrical services would be impacted should those contractors refuse to perform service-based, for non-payment?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yes, thank you for the question. And I know that has been a concern for many of our suppliers. Again, it stems from this unfortunate situation of a very sophisticated attack on our back office systems that removed our ability to rely on the normal tools we would rely on to pay vendors, to pay employees, you name it. And so we've been securely rebuilding those systems, and we've been working closely with vendors, and we know a number were concerned with the slowness of payment. We put sort of like a tiger team on that of employees, pulled them out of different areas, and have been triaging those accounts over the last several weeks and months, and have made some excellent progress, and we'll be back to normal in the coming weeks. So we've made some very good progress over the last month, and we're in connection with all of those vendors on a regular basis to make sure that they know where their invoices are in the process, and notifying them when we've actually paid those invoices and getting that money into their accounts as quickly as possible. So as I say, by the end of the year at the latest, probably a little bit before then, we'll be caught up to where we should normally be.
I recognize MLA Van Exen.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still receiving calls, though, about them not having, I guess, good communication with you folks. So what would be the steps in order, like, a lot of this seems to be falling on the customer or the vendor or whoever else to be proactive in receiving their funds or checking their bills. And I'm like, what other steps should these folks be taking to make sure that they're being paid? And
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
I'll take that away, and if you've got specific information, I would like to get it, because my understanding is we have been reaching out proactively to these vendors, and I'm actually copied on many of those emails to know when, invoice number has been paid or this series of invoices has been paid. So we are proactively reaching out. If there's information you've got where there's still some concerned vendors, I'd like to know about that, and we can action that.
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
And similar to the customer situations we've been talking about, like, we genuinely do want to help in these cases too. So I know that there is a government relations kind of intake that we can have, and we encourage you to reach out to us there, and we'll follow up. So
I recognize MLA Van Exen.
I could keep going on that one, but I appreciate you offering support to them, and maybe we can continue that after. So with that being said, and the ability to, I guess, the ability to pay out the customer and the ability to pay out these vendors with like an expanded timeline, do we anticipate there being any additional impacts to customers because of any of these delays?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
So if I get your question, if I understood your question wrong, please let me know. I think, our focus is, we've made some very good progress over the last several months of securely restoring these systems we need to pay our vendors, make sure we get our accurate bills out to customers. And we're approaching that time where we're getting back to normal functionality. And I think that's the best answer I can give. So it's been a lot of, perhaps too much reactive customers having to contact us or vendors, trying to be as proactive as we can and restore those systems and get back to normal as quickly as we can in a secure way as we can. It's been a lot. And again, just to reiterate, while by design the threat attacker was not able to get into the operating side of the business, into the power grid, were able to get into the back office systems and destroy the communications networks that connect those. And so it's not an excuse, but just sort of it has been a complex rebuilding, restoring process that has taken some time. And we wanted to make sure as we took that time that we're building as securely as possible to restore those pieces of functionality. And again, apologize for customers and vendors who've been impacted that. We're doing everything we can. Everybody in the company essentially focused on getting back to where we need to be.
I recognize MLA McQuarrie.
Thank you. I'd like to get back and just ask about the process for checking a smart meter. So if a customer feels their smart meter has evidence that their smart meter is inaccurate, what is available for them with Nova Scotia Power?
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. So I guess, like, if I take a step back and I actually go to last winter, I know you alluded to kind of prior to this incident as well. One of the things that we have seen, we experienced it over the course of the last winter for sure, and the winter before too, and we know other provinces and states in the Northeast Atlantic did as well. But customers obviously having concerns as bills do increase through the winter months. So I want to start before we get to the meter by acknowledging that, that's one of the pieces that our customer care team has done with customers. So we will talk them through the situation. And one of the great benefits of a smart meter that can communicate with us is that we can actually see the usage by interval. throughout the day, for example, and you can correlate that to the temperature. So if you're heating your home with electricity, you can see the difference in the temperature versus the consumption, and it is actually great. So what we have found is that for customers who do have concerns about the accuracy of a winter bill, when they call us and they talk to us, we're able to resolve most of those by helping educate the customer. And one of the tools that we are working to restore is MyEnergy Insights, which was launched so the customer can self-serve that information as well if they're comfortable online. If we continue through that conversation, which again gets through most, and the customer still does have concerns, they can request the meter to be tested. So we do have a Measurement Canada accredited meter shop within Nova Scotia Power that will test meters where the customers have concerns after they've talked to us to walk through the situation in the home. And if there's still concerns after our accredited meter shop does the test, Measurement Canada can test the meter directly themselves. So the customers do have those mechanisms that they can follow through on. And as an example, last year we had about 300 customers who followed that approach, and the meters did test successfully. In those cases, we did not actually have one that was outside of the Measurement Canada guidelines.
I recognize MLA McQuarrie.
Thank you. A question that was asked earlier was about how many customers are being overestimated and how many customers are being underestimated. And I really don't believe that you have the capacity to even guess at that right now. Is that accurate?
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah, a very fair question. I know what I mentioned earlier is that over the course of the past few weeks, as we've entered into November, we have noticed that half the bills are similar to the previous one, and we can see the increase on half. When we've actually been truing up meter reads, and as Mr. Gregg mentioned earlier, we've got 75% of our customers have had a meter read actually occurring. I don't have the full distribution of it, but up until probably the last month or so, the meter readings have been fairly close. That said, they're estimates, so there's always going to be customers who are on the extremes of those. So if we have a customer who's been underbilled, I know the question was asked earlier what we would do for that. If the customer has concerns because the readings were higher, we would actually be able to help them into a 12 or 24-month payment plan. And if it was the other way around and the customer was owed money, it would either be treated as a credit on a future bill, or there is a process for a customer to request a refund.
I recognize MLA McQuarrie.
Yeah, thank you. I guess tying it back to the person, the customer, they get an estimated bill. They have to continue to plan their life, and they don't know. They might get a high bill, higher than normal. It may be an overestimate or an underestimate, and they don't know. And they need to continue to plan their life as they go forward. What can you do to help advise them as they go through the future if their bill is overestimated or underestimated? Because they need to make plans now in order to be able to go through that process.
Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah, and a very, very fair question, and I agree with you on an individual customer level. That's what's important to an individual Nova Scotian. I think for me, the few things that are available for those customers is, again, understanding what's driving the bill. I mentioned earlier, it will indicate if the meter has been read. If the bill has been estimated and a customer has that particular concern, we want to talk to them, we want to help them out, and there is a process. If they talk to us again, alluded to it earlier, we can help prioritize meter readings for those customers, but also they have a process now that we have made more proactive where they could submit a photo of the meter, so that we can actually reconcile the bill with the actual usage in their home. So those are some of the options that are available to them to support them. And again, fully recognize the fact that people want to pay their bills and they want to make sure that they're caught up on everything. But again, if a customer has an estimated bill right now and they choose not to pay it or the full amount, no late charges and no interest will be charged to them.
Recognize MLA McQuarrie with 1 minute.
Thank you. And again, the programs that and solutions that you're offering will be ineffective if the customers don't know. Are you planning any further outreach sessions in communities?
Mr. Lanteigne?
Yeah, thank you. So from our perspective, it is actually something that we have been actively talking about, how we can get back out into the communities and talk to people. Of course, our customer care team is available to help support people. But definitely take your point that, we want to make sure that customers are aware of the options that are there for them. And if we have customers who aren't aware, that's something that we want to improve on, and we'll be taking that away.
If I could add to that.
Mr. Gregg, order. I apologize.
Okay.
I recognize MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today. I only have 9 minutes, so I have a lot of things I want to cover, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. But the first thing I want to ask is, just on all this conversation, if someone believes that their bill is overestimated or underestimated, is the onus on them to approach Nova Scotia Power to have it investigated, or eventually will you figure it all out and then inform people that they had been overestimated or underestimated?
Mr. Gregg.
We really want to try to avoid as much of having that onus on them. The situation came up earlier where, we're not happy having customers doing our job as we restore our systems. And so we recognize there is some onus. We're asking customers if they get a bill to reach out to us. But I think the big fix is getting back to restoration of the systems. So if we can get the communication system to connect to the meters and to our billing engine, that gives us the accurate data and our commitment to true up the bills with that accurate data. So either under and over, we will correct that, and we'll provide flexible tools for customers to use as we do that correction. Do you want to add?
No.
Okay, you don't want, okay. Fair enough.
MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you. And I just want to ask one more question about, the real life people that this is affecting. And so Mari Carver contacted our office to say that she had been sent a $230 bill, even though she usually pays $150. When she contacted Nova Scotia Power, she was assured that there would be no consequences if she paid only her typical bill amount because of the estimating process, as you've all mentioned. But a few months later, Nova Scotia Power sent her to collections for $67, contrary to the assurance that there would be no penalty for lack of payment. So why is Nova Scotia Power telling customers one thing and then doing completely the opposite?
Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I can't get into any specific customer situation here. What I can mention, though, is that for any former customers of Nova Scotia Power, we do follow up with them on outstanding balances. And from my perspective, again, in this particular situation, the only thing I will say is that, when we did hear of the customer concerns, we did actually reach out to them to make it right.
MLA LeBlanc.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I have a lot of customers who find themselves, constituents who find themselves getting, into arrears with Nova Scotia Power because of the high cost of living and the high cost of rent and the high cost of food and the high cost of everything. And I would think that it would be a double whammy if they were in this time period being sent collections notices with all of this stuff in flux. So I would just like to put on the record that I think maybe you should look at that policy at this point. No, I'm just, it's all, just one second. It's all of this is to say, though, that the issue with this in general is that power bills are expensive, right? Like, even without the breach, people's power, since 2021, people have been paying more than $400 a year. And I will just say to everyone in the room, and everyone knows this, that the premier of this province has declared himself the Minister of Energy, and he has the power to change that. We have talked about this earlier. He has the power to make regulation changes that would allow Nova Scotia Power to create a low-income power rate. And so far, we've really skipped over that today. I think we really need to remind ourselves that the reason we're asking these questions is because our constituents are suffering and they are not able to afford their power bills. And yet, the Premier of this province has the capacity to do something about it today. So, sorry, go ahead and answer the other part, please.
Mr. Gregg, or I'm sorry, I apologize, Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah. So I want to address your point about how we're following up with customers on balances. So, and I'm going to speak to our active customers right now. Again, we have not been charging late fees. We have not been charging interest. The one thing that we will do with an active customer is we will reach out to them and, with a payment reminder. And we have been doing that over the course of the last few months. Again, our language is very specific to ensure that a customer, does not feel that there's a threat of disconnection, for example, for not being able to pay their bill. That's really important right now. And for all the things we've been talking about today, we do understand that there's some concerns if bills are being estimated. So we want to make sure that we're taking that, thoughtful approach with our customers. We've heard from low-income advocates and we've heard from others that we are concerned about if balances are growing, if no payments are made still. So that's one of the reasons why we are reaching out to active customers. But again, none of those customers have been disconnected. None of those customers would have a consequence if they're not paying their bill right now, because we recognize that it's the right thing to do for our customers.
Emily LeBlanc.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Just want to go back to something that Mr. Gregg said in his opening comments, I believe, and that was about the social insurance numbers. So my understanding is that, even like this week, people are still getting letters. I got one this time saying that my information might have been stolen, but it's been 8 months, and as you continue to deal with the breach, what material improvements have you seen in the legislation, the privacy legislation that it was passed in the last session? That's number one. And secondly, you did mention that you're not collecting social insurance numbers anymore, but you still have some that you need to delete. And I'm just wondering what's taking so long to get rid of those numbers.
Mr. Gregg, please.
So I'll start at that last one and then maybe work back. But if I omit something, please remind me. So on the social insurance numbers, there are two investigations ongoing, external investigations. One is by the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, it's federal, and then the Energy Board is doing an investigation as well. But as we think about the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, that investigation has been ongoing, and where those social insurance numbers are actually part of the investigation. The data, we're not allowed to destroy or delete information as the investigation is ongoing. We're getting to a point now in the discussions with the Privacy Commissioner that I'm confident we're getting toward the end of that investigation, and our commitment to customers is as soon as we can delete those social insurance numbers, we will do so. I said out till March 31st was the commitment to put a time frame on it, but I'm confident we can actually exceed that. And as we get into the final days of that ongoing investigation, again, our commitment is to delete those as soon as possible.
Recognize Emily LeBlanc, minute 20 seconds.
Okay, thank you very much. Nova Scotia Power has just recently put in a new rate increase application. 3 weeks after that rate application, the PC government, the Houston government, slashed eligibility for the Heating Assistance Rebate Program, which helps Nova Scotians pay their power bills. So they made it harder to qualify for the program, and they provided less money as a rebate. Did Nova Scotia Power know that the government was planning to make cuts to that program when you put the rate application in?
I recognize Mr. Gregg with 44 seconds.
No, not to my knowledge.
I recognize Emily LeBlanc.
Last question really quickly. I have a constituent who was told by Nova Scotia Power that they were changing the date that her automatic payment came out, and it didn't line up with when her income was going into the bank account, and she was very worried about it. It's been fixed in this particular case, but I'm wondering if that changing of the date of the automatic payment is part of this renewal process, or was that just a blip?
Mr. Lanteigne.
We did change the payment dates for a small number of customers, and we gave them a mechanism to contact us if there was concerns. It really didn't have anything to do with this. It was just making sure that the payments were being applied ahead of the due date.
Order. We now move to MLA Rankin with 9 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll stick with you, Mr. Lanteigne, just for the customer service side of what's happening here. So I think my colleague, the MLA for Annapolis, mentioned of his constituent being left on hold. We're hearing similar instances where there's reports of 20, 30, 40 minutes trying to get through to customer service representatives. Now, I will say the staff that you've arranged to work with our offices are great, but not everybody knows to reach out to us, and we're seeing comments and emails of that. Shouldn't have to get to the MLA to actually have reasonable customer service on the other end of the phone. So just wondering, like, what kind of key performance indicators are there for your staff? Like, what standard do you expect of your representatives dealing with the public that are dealing with these overestimated bills?
Mr. Lanteigne?
If I could, I would like to start by saying thank you for acknowledging that the staff that you've been dealing with are great. They are working hard, and our customer service associates on the phone are working hard too with our customers. We still talk to thousands of people a day about a variety of topics. And there's a couple of pieces of that I wanted to talk about, what we're doing and some context around, what's to come, I guess, in the coming weeks and months as well. So the first thing is everything that we're talking about here today. Really important questions, great questions. Our customers are asking us those questions too. So it has increased the call volume that's coming into our customer care center. So we are experiencing longer wait times to get through to us right now. A couple of pieces that we've been working on is we have added significant resources. We have been adding customer care representatives since the summer, and we're continuing to recruit into that customer care team so that we have more people available to help. The other thing that has happened as a result of this is that there are certain customer functions that a lot of customers used to choose to do through self-service avenues that we still have not been able to fully restore. And I'll give one example for that. So if a customer is looking to start a service somewhere, they're looking to move their service or end their service because they're moving away. Those used to come in at a very high rate through customers using an online form. Now all of those calls actually need to come in to our customer care center. So it has increased the volume. We've been trying to get in front of it with hiring, but we do acknowledge that the wait times right now are longer than we would want them to be, and we're working very hard to fix that.
Recognize MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the answer. I wanted to follow up on a couple questions from previous attendance at Public Accounts Committee related to the cybersecurity breach. And so that was about 6 months ago, and we were trying to get at the cost perspective, and because it impacts the operations and everything that you do. So at the time, Mr. Gregg, you did tell the committee that that insurance, you weren't sure if the insurance would cover it. I just want to first ask the question, are you able to provide an update on what the cost estimate is for the breach?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Well, I'm not able to provide the cost estimate for the breach, publicly disclose that. I am able to say that customers will not be asked to pay for any of the restoration work. So through a combination of our insurance coverage, and also there's some costs that we have expensed in this year already. So again, that's to our shareholders' cost, not to customers' cost. A certain amount that we've expensed this year, and we're relying on our insurance coverage for the balance of the restoration work.
Recognize MLA Rankin.
Yeah, thank you. I think you anticipated well my next question to that, because I did ask in that committee. So that's pretty clear in terms of the direct costs. But what about all of the indirect costs when we look at, for example, the example of adding resources to the customer service team and adding staff dealing with outcomes related to a significant breach that's impacting operations, sending people out to check meters? I know you've had that going on even yesterday in my riding, so that there's obviously an HR component. So My question really is around ensuring that there are no impacts when you're looking at rate increases. I just want to be clear that nothing related to the breach will impact customers.
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yeah, maybe 2 points I'll make there. One is, yes, I can confirm that customers will not be asked to pay for our restoration costs for the cyber event. I want to be clear about that. But the other point I want to make too, with the rate application that's currently in front of the Energy Board, there are no cyber breach related costs in that application as well.
I recognize MLA Rankin.
So all of the staff that you're hiring now, that you're putting into the customer service team, all the arrangements you're making at an operational level, that is not part of asking for higher rates from customers. Just want to be clear.
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
You know, all of the restoration work, there's been a lot of restoration work that continues to this day. We've got staff assigned to many areas of the business, customer care, vendor payments, IT system restoration, consultants in helping us from a cybersecurity perspective. And again, the cost of that restoration will not be borne by customers.
Recognize MLA Rankin, 3 minutes.
Okay. So with 3 minutes left, so I'm looking at some uncertainty on dealing with the breach, dealing with the overestimates, not having a true picture of revenue coming in on your accounts receivable line, and various other uncertainties. And we actually called for a review and trying to find cost savings within the structure of Nova Scotia Power, within looking at reliability and trying to transition to more affordable, clean energy. And this is something we addressed directly to the new Minister of Energy, happens to be the Premier, who has a really important role to set policy for the province. And we know it would have been great to have the Deputy Minister here to ask that question, but members voted against having the Deputy that you have ongoing conversations with. All I can say is that I supported that Deputy coming here, and obviously the NDP did too. So certain members did not, that was clear. And I just want to ask, like, as part of your ongoing conversations with your new minister, has the topic come up about cooperating in some kind of investigative full analysis into the operations at Nova Scotia Power with the intent to truly find long-term cost savings for customers? This wouldn't be a cost to Nova Scotia Power. This would be about opening up your books and allowing government, who actually does serve the public interest. Your interests are private, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're a private company. But clearly the Department of Energy has a specific role, and they actually gave themselves that role in legislation. So I just want to ask if the Minister of Energy or his staff posed the question to you, how receptive you would be to such a review.
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
It's a complex question. I think, you know, as a regulated entity in Nova Scotia, I think we are subject to a fairly robust regulatory framework and oversight. We've got a very competent energy board and, you know, essentially constant interaction with that energy board on a myriad of issues, including rate applications, our annual capital expenditure plan, you know, recent discussions with them around our 5-year, $1.3 billion reliability plan and oversight for that. We've got 2 active investigations into the cyber event, as I mentioned earlier. There was a task force review that the government did conduct. We got the report from that, I think it was early last year. And what we got from that was Bill 404, which part of that was to introduce a new independent energy system operator. And I think it's important to mention because the result of that review did create.
Order.
Okay.
I recognize MLA McGilvery.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions I have looking forward. So we're 8 months down the road since the cyber security event. What safeguards are now in place to ensure a breach of this magnitude doesn't happen again?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
So we are doing everything we can to secure our systems. Again, I'd say, you know, by the posture we'd had in place before, we were able to ensure that the attacker did not get onto the operations side of the business. Unfortunately, they did get into the back office. I should also say that the level and complexity of these attacks is increasing everywhere. It's not just a Nova Scotia Power issue. This is a global threat that it continues to increase. But we understand the concern. It has happened to us, and what are we doing to prevent it? And I can say we're doing everything we can to prevent it. So we're using the best experts internationally in terms of building secure systems and making sure we have protections for our business, for our customers, for privacy information. And it's part of why we've been so purposeful in the time it takes to rebuild these systems. We know it's taking a long time, I know our customers would feel that way, but making sure when we build them back that we're doing so in the most secure way possible, relying on the expertise globally to ensure that we're as protected as we possibly can be. And it's going to be a consistent effort as the threat environment evolves. We're going to have to keep up with that. And our commitment is to do that.
Recognize MLA McGilvery.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Just wondering on a slightly different but related note, what actions are you taking to rebuild trust with Nova Scotians?
Recognize Mr. Gregg.
It's a very good question, especially with the conversation we're having today. And again, I'll go back to where I started. We know we have some work to do there. I know I have some work to do, and my colleagues, and we are focused on that. We know that trust in our business is important because we are an essential service for Nova Scotians. And we know that this event, this cyber event, unfortunately has contributed to some questions regarding that. So, our commitment is to be as transparent as we can be, to get the best information we can possibly get into the hands of our customers, into Nova Scotians, to be as empathetic as we can possibly be. Tools like Mr. Lanteigne had mentioned in terms of giving customers flexibility to make sure we're not doing any disconnections during this time, to make sure we're not charging interest. And I think just being present. We had an opportunity over the last 8 months. I think we've had 62 or so community sessions. Some of those are cyber related. Some of those are just, being in the community. We'll continue that. I think making sure that people in communities know who we are. I'm proud of our people. If you get to know our people, they mean really well. They care about our customers, and they're our best asset. And so making sure we're present, available, transparent, over time, my hope is that we can rebuild that trust.
Recognize MLA Macquarie.
Yeah, just the answer to a previous question about the extra costs involved in the service. I think Nova Scotians are very concerned that the rate hike is paying for those. And I'd like to ask you, if insurance is not paying for it, and the dividends that were just paid out are even higher than last year's to shareholders, who is paying for it? Where is that money going to come from? If it's not from the shareholders' dividend, if it's not from rate hikes, where does the money come from to pay for that?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
I think I've got it. So no, we do have insurance. So we do have an insurance policy. We are working with our insurer, and there will be insured costs as part of this restoration effort. That is a major tool we're relying on. So I want to be clear about that. So we do have good insurance. We have a good relationship with our insurer, and we're working through that. And bulk of the costs, frankly, will be borne by insurance. Where, as I said, in my commitment that the cost of the restoration will not be paid by customers, I want to reiterate that. Anything over and above that would be expensed. And so, like typical in an insurance policy, there is a deductible. And so we have already expensed that deductible. And that means customers don't pay for that. That goes directly to our bottom line as a company, so it means the shareholder gets that cost. And so again, just to reiterate too, with the application before the Energy Board now, there are no cyber restoration costs included in that application at all.
MLA Macquarie.
Yeah, I understood that from your answer, but there are additional costs that are not covered by insurance that you had mentioned. I think you had mentioned extra hiring that was done Is that an insurable cost as well? For example, the extra meter readers, the extra people at the call center, the extra meter testing, the extra all of these things you're doing that would not normally be part of your business, that are not directly related to the cyber attack. So you do have some uninsured costs to this. Is that correct?
Mr. Gregg.
Really two buckets I was trying to communicate in the response to that answer. So many of the items you mentioned in terms of costs are directly related to the restoration, which insurance can cover. Now we're still working with our insurer on that to basically get those costs covered, and anything over and above that is not insurable. I mentioned the deductible as an example, will be expensed by the company. So when it comes to direct restoration costs, really there are two buckets. It's insurance, or it's expense to the company, not to our customers.
I recognize MLA Macquarie.
I guess it's unclear to me if it's expense to the company and the shareholders' dividends are not affected. Who's paying for it?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
So I think the dividend I think you're referring to is the Emera dividend that was recently increased. So Emera is larger than Nova Scotia Power. We're a part of Nova Scotia Power, so it's a portfolio of various assets. And so the dividend really is related to that whole portfolio. I would say, when it comes to my expectation, and I think our public disclosures on this, is that our earnings in the year will not be as much as they were last year, so we're seeing some pressure on earnings. And so I guess a roundabout way of getting at that is that the increase in dividends is coming from other parts of the Emera family, not from Nova Scotia Power.
I recognize MLA Bowlby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a point of make sure that I get everybody's got the same paper. My colleagues have been mentioning about the Minister of Energy and the Deputy Minister of Energy being here, but my agenda says this is a review of Nova Scotia Power, so I just want to make sure that I've got the same agenda as everybody. I have a question to the gentleman from Nova Scotia Power. Many Nova Scotians got a letter in October, and I just got mine Monday, identifying that their private information was included in the cybersecurity breach. Can you explain to the committee why this wasn't discovered last spring or earlier? Like why are we getting more letters?
I recognize Mr. Gregg.
Yes, thank you for that. And some of those letters have gone out recently, as you mentioned. So, when the immediate aftermath of the breach, we'd had certain information available to us that said certain customer information was likely breached in the cyber event. But there was a lot of data that needed to be gone through over the last several months as part of our internal investigation, but also part of the investigation by the Privacy Commissioner and the Energy Board investigation. So we have had experts going through that data continuously from that point of time. And my commitment at the time was, as we go through that data and discover if there are other customers who may have had their information impacted by the cyber event, that we would give direct notification. And so that's what you're seeing as we get through that data. We're getting toward the end of that now, and so I'm getting confident that there are likely very few more letters to come. But it was always a commitment as we worked through vast amounts of data, that if we found information that would suggest that a customer's own data was accessed, we would give direct notification to them. But I would also say, I think it was back in June, out of an abundance of caution, before we actually had a chance to go through all that data and before the investigations were complete, we did advise all customers, current customers and former customers, to say, out of an abundance of caution, to use the credit monitoring services that we're providing for 5 years. And we gave notification broadly to all of those customers just to say, out of an abundance of caution, if we do uncover more, please sign up for credit monitoring. And we provided that for 5 years.
I was going to mention what, yeah.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah.
I got
I
that.
recognize MLA Bowlby.
Would it be reasonable to assume at this point that if you've ever been a customer of Nova Scotia Power, that you might be getting a letter that your information may have been breached?
Mr. Gregg.
I probably wouldn't go that far based on what we've experienced, but it's an increasing threat environment regardless for anybody. You hear about various companies getting attacked every day. It's just an increasing threat environment. So we stand behind our commitment. While we don't have evidence that every customer could have been impacted by this, we made the decision to say, if you have been a customer of ours and are a current customer of ours, we will provide credit monitoring out of an abundance of caution. We still stand behind that and encourage customers to take us up on that offer.
MLA Valby.
We're heading into the winter months, and of course everything costs a little bit more in the winter, and there are some constituents that live paycheck to paycheck. Let's not hide that. And I know that there's concern, like, do we pay our power bill? Do we put food on the table? I know you spoke about working with and helping. Can you elaborate further? Like, what is the full suite of programs available that Nova Scotia Power is going to try to do to help people keep the lights on and still be able to feed their families?
Yeah, absolutely.
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah, thank you. And that is a very important question, and it's a very...
Order. Mr. Lanteigne, please. Okay.
Oh, yeah, apologies.
Your mic wasn't on.
It's a very important question, and I'm glad you asked. It's a very big concern of ours as well, working with our customers. And we do recognize that, over the last several years, the cost of many things has increased. Housing interest rates are higher than they were 5 years ago, and energy bills as well is a part of that. So from our perspective, it's been a real big focus of ours, especially over the last few years, to help anybody who is struggling with their power bill. So just a few pieces on that. We do have a dedicated low-income advocate at Nova Scotia Power that will help in cases where a customer is struggling with their bills. Our team as well of customer service associates is always looking for solutions for customers to help them if their bill has gotten to a point where they're concerned about the balance. Whether that be a payment plan where they could take a balance that perhaps they had fallen behind on and spread that amount out over interest-free over 12 or 24 months. I think that is a big concern that people have come to, and we've worked closely and we meet quarterly with the Affordable Energy Coalition and the Consumer Advocate on how to best deploy these things for our customers. And I think probably one of the biggest things is we want our customers to talk to us. That's what we have really been focused on over the last couple of years. Again, I want to reiterate, we haven't disconnected any customers for not being able to pay their bill in 2025. But in 2024, we saw a significant reduction in the amount of disconnections that actually had to occur because of that ongoing collaboration and partnership with the Affordable Energy Coalition, the Consumer Advocate, other low-income advocates across the province, and of course, in conversations with our customers. So in light of this situation, we recognize that customer concerns have been exacerbated if it's an estimated bill or even if it's a true-up situation where perhaps more energy was used than had been estimated. And in those types of scenarios, we're going to do our best to talk to every customer who has a concern. And again, if there's a way that we can help them in a payment plan for a large balance so they can help best manage the household finances in their home, that's our commitment to keep doing that for our customers. It's something we were proud to do before this cyber incident occurred, and it's definitely going to be a huge focus of ours as we move through the winter months, to your point, when things can get more expensive.
I recognize MLA Van Exen.
Thank you, Chair. I had mentioned a little bit, when I was first asking some questions, that I had some constituents that had reached out and let me know that their bank accounts had been wiped out when automatic billing had restarted or automatic payment arrangements had been started. So can you tell me how many customers have canceled their automatic payment arrangements, specifically because they couldn't trust in the process anymore, or they were worried about their accounts being overcharged?
I recognize Mr. Lanteigne.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I will admit I can't confirm how many customers did cancel their automatic payment amounts. So that is some information that we could take away and look into. One of the big pieces that we did do, recognizing that when we resumed billing back in June, that the timing of bills that were arriving was different. Our messaging at that time was really focused on informing customers to, pay the amount through their bank. I think someone had mentioned earlier that that's how a lot of customers pay. So paying that balance through the bank and having control over that amount for a variety of reasons. It's the most popular way that customers pay us. I can confirm that is actually registering the bill at the bank and paying it. So that was a focus of ours, was to encourage customers to do that, but we can take away the specific question.
MLA Van Exen with 50 seconds.
Okay, and have you tracked how many customers have experienced overdraft fees or NSF charges because of the automatic withdrawals, and how are you going about reimbursing them or supporting them through overdraft charges or additional charges?
Mr. Lanteigne, please.
I think, again, it's important to note that from our perspective, we're not charging any fees or like late fees or interest for customer accounts. We are not aware of, we don't have the ability to understand what a bank might have done in a situation like that. However, if a customer calls us, our customer services associates are empowered to make it right for the customer at that first point of contact, and that's what we're going to continue to do. We've had lots of conversations with our team.
Order. Thank you very much. That's the end of our questioning. I asked Mr. Gregg or Mr. Lanteigne, is any closing comments? Mr. Gregg?
Yes, brief ones. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak to the committee today and for the important questions that you've raised and the conversation we've had today. We know our customers feel that we have let them down following the impact of the cyber attack. I want to reassure the committee members that everyone at Nova Scotia Power is committed to working day and night on the full recovery of all systems and services and building back the trust of our customers, who are also our families, our friends, and our neighbors. You have our commitment that if we get it wrong, we will make it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lanteigne, any comments?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you. That wraps up the questioning portion of our, and before we move to committee business, I'm going to take a 3-minute recess. It allows people to exit and stretch, but I want to keep it as short as possible. Order, can we get back to committee business here, please? I have, sorry. Yep. So one of the things on our agenda is a letter that was received. Excuse me. That's been passed along to everybody. I don't think there's any need. Is there a need for discussion on that? Okay. Seeing nothing, we'll move on from there. Our next meeting, and I'm going to go. Our next meeting is on January the 27th. And it's to be a topic of progress on wind reports. And the witnesses would be the Department of Energy and the Department of Environment and Climate Change. And I have a motion on the table, and you have so I go to the motion on the table first, is that correct? Oh, well, so we...
There's no motion on the agenda.
No, but there is on the table. It was sent to the, yeah. So I'm going to recognize MLA McQuarrie.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to make a motion. Whereas Nova Scotians deserve consistent and accurate information related to their power rates, and whereas the Nova Scotia Power Corporation is responsible for addressing the concerns discussed with members today, therefore, be it resolved that the Nova Scotia Natural Resources and Economic Development Committee directs staff to prepare and send a formal letter to Nova Scotia Power requesting the following. That after a period of 60 days from the date of this correspondence, Nova Scotia Power provide the committee with a detailed report outlining instances of overpayment and underpayment by customers, including the scope and any corrective measures taken. An explanation of the process and safeguards in place to prevent such discrepancies in the future. Number two, that Nova Scotia Power also provide clarity on contingency plans related to smart meters, including steps to address potential failures or inaccuracies, and customer support mechanisms and communication strategies in the event of system issues.
I recognize the MLA Rankin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll support the motion. There's some elements in the motion that I asked for information today from Mr. Gregg, so hopefully he can provide some of the financial aspects of the issue at hand. But I will say that I am disappointed that we didn't have an opportunity to question representatives from government on a topic that clearly has responsibility within government itself too. We do have a regulated utility that has an interest to their shareholders primarily, and government does provide the regulations of which they're regulated on with the Energy Board, and so there are a number of policy choices that could be chosen by government, and some have recently been removed, whether that's the solar homes rebate that prevents Nova Scotians from an incentive to invest in lowering their power bill, whether that's the heating rebate, or we have tens of thousands of Nova Scotians that are not able to receive relief from their power bill. There's a number of policy directions that the government can take, and it would have been a more fulsome discussion had we had the government here. So I just want to register my concern when the government brings forward something that's so important to Nova Scotians trying to afford their power bill, and we have another general rate hearing coming forward. And so far in the last 4 years, rates have gone up 20%. And we need to try to arrest this trend. Government needs to be at the table, and Mr. Gregg himself talked about ongoing discussions with that Department of Energy. So I just want to register that, but I'll support the motion.
I apologize. I recognize MLA Tender.
We will also be supporting the motion, but I do also want to say that I take some issue with the preamble. I think the framing of this meeting, of this motion as Nova Scotia Power being solely responsible for power and energy and privacy and affordability in this province is inaccurate. In fact, we have a regulated utility that is regulated by government, and the Department of Energy, which the Premier now helms, has a huge role to play in giving Nova Scotians relief. And so with that clarification as to the preamble, we will be supporting the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. I recognize MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And on this, I would like to reiterate my colleagues, both my colleagues' comments about how disappointing it was that there was no one from the department here, and MLA Bowlby, made a point of referring to the topic on the agenda, the review of Nova Scotia Power. But the fact is that they are intertwined. Nova Scotia Power is intertwined with the Department of Energy, and the Premier of this province is the new Minister of Energy, and he is the minister directly responsible for Nova Scotia Power. And so if the Premier is not going to be here, which I don't really expect him to be, but the Deputy Minister should be. So I have a motion to put on the table as well in that vein, and that is, whereas the Department of Energy has an important role to play in the conversations we had today, the department, which Premier Tim Houston is directly responsible for, oversees the legislation that governs Nova Scotia Power and has the ability to enact legislation to lower people's power bills and protect their privacy. Therefore, be it resolved that this committee collectively agrees to call an additional emergency meeting in December on the topic of Nova Scotia Power bills, with the Deputy Minister of Energy appearing as a witness. So that's my motion, and I will just remind the committee that we agreed to cancel our December meeting because it was going to be too close to the holidays. That was our regular meeting would have fallen on December 23rd. We could try to have an emergency meeting scheduled for an earlier Thursday in December to avoid conflicts with other committees.
And do you have a hard copy of that, so we have that here for, please? Discussion. MLA Rankin.
Yeah, I'm going to support the motion for all the other reasons that I've already mentioned in terms of the relationship with Department of Energy, especially what we heard today, and we know of the conversations that are continuously happening. And we did send a letter asking for an independent review upon the change in the cabinet shuffle with the new energy minister, and we have not had a response relative to the interest of conducting such a review. And so it would be nice to have a prompt discussion with the deputies on what they think of a review, and actually look at everything Nova Scotia Power does related to their operations, and how we can protect ratepayers from future increases, and how we can protect Nova Scotians from things like that are major happening with cybersecurity and being overcharged for the power bills. I think it's as important as anything right now as we're getting into the heating season, and temps are dropping, people are paying attention, and government is ultimately responsible to protect the public interest, so we need to hear from government itself.
Thank you. Further discussion? MLA Macquarie.
Yeah, we called Nova Scotia Power to come here because, really we wanted to focus on the customers and their responsibility to the customers and their reaction to a data breach. Also, it's we had provided notice of our motion in advance, and I just find it's very difficult to evaluate a motion on such short notice. So we're not going to be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Further discussion? I don't know which is.
Oh, sorry.
MLA LeBlanc.
Oh, you go ahead.
MLA Chender.
Well, I want to make sure we have time for a vote. We've been around this rodeo before. We're all thinking adults with agency who can decide what the right course of action is. We heard the CEO of Nova Scotia Power tell us today that everything that was presented here in this committee has been presented directly to government. The government members are a part of that government, so presumably they would have heard all of this at their own caucus meeting. What we haven't heard is what the government is going to do about it. And I'll remind the MLAs present that every Nova Scotia Power customer is also a Nova Scotian and a Nova Scotian taxpayer. And those taxpayers fund our government, and our government has a responsibility which I would suggest this government is not fulfilling very well, to make sure that people's lives are affordable, to make sure that people can pay their power bills, to make sure that the heat can stay on as winter comes. So with that, I would urge my colleagues on the government side to reconsider.
Recognize MLA LeBlanc.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly that yes, and we agreed to this meeting. We supported the motion to call this emergency meeting, and we thought it would be improved by having the department here, which was voted down by the government side. So we're trying again. With that being said, Mr. Chair, I'd like to call for a recorded vote.
I just, further discussion first, but I think we're going to have to at some point have some discussions about what's considered to be confidential votes and who people can sit here and say, I voted this way or I voted that way. It was those people that voted that way. We don't have any evidence of that. So we need to have a discussion about that at some point. It's been brought up 3 times here at this meeting today. And so, but I just, as the chair, I think I have to say that. So do we have any further discussion here? Call for the question. All in favor?
No, ask for a recorded vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, a recorded vote.
Emily McClory,
No.
Emily McGilvery,
Nay.
Emily Bowlby,
No.
Emily Van Exen,
No.
Emily Rankin,
Yes.
Emily Chender,
Yes.
Emily LeBlanc.
Yes. Yes.
The motion is defeated. Is there any further business? I call adjourned to this meeting.